when you hear Deborah Birx, Dr. Birx say it's devastatingly worrisome to see people outside breaking the guidelines that we all have agreed upon have kept us safe and continue to. What do you think?
Harris, I think there's a couple of things. First of all, it depends on the state. And she was talking about Michigan, where there's been 45,000 cases and a recent surge. Not clear that they're flattening the curve. You know, Florida is about 35,000 cases, but in Florida, the question isn't, in my mind, in my opinion, whether the beaches should be open, but how long you keep them open when there are no public bathrooms. Is it possible to keep social distancing on the beaches? I think it might be. I think it might be. You're seeing people walking along the sidewalks anyway. The real question is, region by region, how many cases have you flattened the curve? And can you get people outside and away? Because you and I have talked a lot about mental health issues. And boy, a couple of hours on the beach, if you can obey the social distancing, is great for mental health in a state like Florida.
You know, you talk about bathroom facilities. Hand washing is such a huge part of all this. No matter how much hand sanitizer you have at the beach, it mixes with sand. And I got to imagine you got kind of a mess on your hands. You need to go and wash them off. But the length of time is something that probably legally could be talked about, too. I mean, you might want to add that into your guidelines. Emily, I'm going to ask you, with your legal background, are any of these leaders on shaky ground if the guidelines really are too wide, notwithstanding what the Attorney General has said, that they need to take another look at them and that they may be overstepping? But just common sense-wise, you know, you hear Dr. Siegel talking about bathroom facilities at the beach.
Right. The issue becomes when constitutional rights and liberties are being infringed. And that's really when there's a very high bar for these governors and these state leaders to cross if they're actually going to pass judicial muster. And we've talked about this before, that the test is whether it's the least restrictive means of accomplishing a legitimate goal. So if a plaintiff can argue, look, here's a way to accomplish this legitimate public health goal without trampling on my constitutional right, then that's when they're on shaky ground. And I have to say, Dr. Siegel touched on that regional nature. I'm sitting here in Washington and I'm from California. My governor just extended the stay-at-home order through the end of this month, but he announced a 4-phase plan, each phase lasting about 3 weeks, and he has refused to give specific data that's led him to this conclusion because he says, look, I'm waiting for it to be favorable. But the difference is that here he's allowed any county that does meet certain criteria to basically apply to be exempt. And he says there are 10 counties here that essentially can get back to work sooner. But in California, that's 58 counties, 15 of which have seen 0 deaths. And yet Governor Gavin Newsom continues to apply sort of that one-size-fits-all, which is why it's such an issue.